including stem cell, I've had 7 knee surgeries.
7 knee surgeries.
All on my right knee.
And now there's no ACL.
No ACL, no cartilage. My ACL tore during my MMA career. So I haven't had, like, I got it repaired, but the graft tore a long time ago. I've been operating with no ACL and barely any cartilage for probably like maybe last 4 or 5 years. My ACL injury is probably one of the more formative events of my career. It's one of the incidences I cite when I talk about advantageous disadvantages, and I tore my ACL, so I spent an entire year doing just arm bars, learning arm bars. That's what I think really brought me to the next level and forced me to really not do all of my favorite throws, which really required me standing on my right leg. And I had to pretty much think of an entire repertoire of throws that didn't involve my right leg. And then I was putting like almost 100% of my focus onto all of my like sparring, or I guess we call it Dori and Judo, was on Newaza, which is mat work. So by the time my knee healed, I had double the amount of throws and a sick ground game. And so it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
How is it possible that some of these athletes are able to return to a high level of play, right, with no ACL? And it's like, 1% or less of the population can do it. That'd be nice and easy, okay? And as a female, it's even harder, right? Because anatomy and all the high risk for ACL injuries and everything. So, yeah. And then she has all these, like, before we were working on more balanced stuff and everything before this happened, and she has all these, like, funky, like, compensations because she has so much dexterity in her feet, right? She's able to, like, grip the ground and then balance her hips around it. It's, like, crazy. Switch positions.
Nice, my knee troubles my whole life has really forced me to be very conscious of how I place my weight on that leg. So I have to be so precise with how I plant my right leg. Like I went a couple of years not being able to step backward until I got my stem cell done, and then it really helped a lot. But I have to like really, really focus on how I place my foot. And no matter what direction I'm going, momentum's going, I have to turn my body and compensate so that my right leg always lands solid and there's no strain on the ligaments. And I think a lot of times depend on their hardware of their body to hold themselves together instead of the mechanics of their movement. And it really forced me to be extremely precise with how I move and place my feet.
2.
Get some brown sugar soon.
So a lot of my focus in training is more not breaking down my body to build it up again, but more maintenance and active recovery. I've been an athlete for a really, really long time. I've been doing swimming since I was 6, judo since I was 11, MMA since I was 22. What I really like about Lanil's approach is that he has a whole body approach as opposed to like, oh, your knees hurt, I'm gonna like massage around your knee and give you an ice pack and get the fuck out of here. Because I always would notice that like my injuries would travel up. I hurt my foot and then I hurt my knee and then my hips started to bother me and then my back. And everybody else every doctor that I always seen specializes in one joint and area, and every PT that I've ever seen only focuses on the immediate problem area. And I just really like Lanil's approach of like, hey, we're gonna like address the immediate, acute injury and all of the other effects that it could have throughout your body. At this point in my career, it's like I've just beaten myself to shit, and so it's like the full body approach is really what I need, because it's not about like putting out specific fires, because my whole body is a dumpster fire right now.
Immediately, as soon as I could start working on her shoulder, I did on both sides, because basically, and it's kind of an assumption that you start not being able to use your hand, that you're not going to be able to use your shoulder as well, or you're going to start using it awkwardly or less. And of course, this last time, a couple weeks ago, when I started looking at her shoulder, it was really weak. And, 2 years later, she goes to do something that, normally she feels like she can do, and there's just something that's a little off, and boom, her shoulder pops out or something. So that's my fault, in my opinion, if that happens. So, and that's the difference between like real sports therapy and what you typically see at the clinic on the corner that sees an athlete or two every week. They don't. And it's not. Sometimes it's not the clinic's fault, but sometimes it's just the way that it is. Like, you only have an hour and 15 minutes to work with somebody, so you only ever get to cover the basics, and then they get conditioned to be in that mindset. So when you're working in a training room or some type of a center where there's nothing but athletes there, it's all about performance and recovery, and that's it. You don't care what you got to do to get them there. You take as much time as necessary. There's no insurance to worry about or anything like that.